If you've ever handled a centuries-old timber pulled from a collapsed barn, a shipyard, or a ruined hall and wondered why it still rings solid when struck, the answer is not mystery or luck. It is patience. Long before kilns, moisture meters, and accelerated drying schedules, wood was given time to become something else. It was not rushed into usefulness. It was allowed to settle, move, shrink, and stabilize on its own terms. This is the part modern building culture forgot. When historic structures endured for generations, it wasn't because the wood was stronger at the moment it was cut. It was because it was seasoned slowly, deliberately, and with an understanding of how trees behave after death. Today we're going to break down exactly how lumber was seasoned the old way, why it worked, and how you can still apply that logic now. Why traditional seasoning began before the tree ever hit the ground. In earlier centuries, wood cutting was timed, not opportunistic. Trees were often felled in late winter when sap content was lowest. Less sap meant fewer sugars, which meant reduced fungal growth and insect attraction. It also meant slower, more even drying. This single choice had consequences lasting decades. If you apply this today, well, it means selecting reclaimed or freshly cut wood with awareness of when it was harvested. If you have the option, winter-cut lumber will always behave better during long-term seasoning. How rough sawing and early exposure prevented hidden failure. Historic lumber was rarely milled to final dimensions immediately. Logs were broken down into oversized beams or boards and left thick. This allowed internal stresses to reveal themselves early through surface checking instead of warping finished components. Old builders preferred wood to fail early and visibly. A modern application would be leaving planks thicker than needed during initial seasoning, allowing them to twist or crack before final shaping. This avoids building with tension you cannot see. You know, airflow mattered a whole lot more than just speed. Seasoning yards were actually designed with wind, shade, and elevation in mind. Boards were stacked up on stone or raised sleepers so ground moisture couldn't creep up, and those little spacers, called stickers, were placed between each layer to make sure there was even airflow across every surface. Now, here's something crucial. Stacks were always protected from direct sun and rain. See, rapid surface drying can cause what's known as case hardening, where the outside dries up and traps moisture inside. The old way, well, it just avoided this problem altogether. So, if you're seasoning lumber at home, make sure to elevate it, space it out evenly, and just cover the top. Let those sides breathe, all right? In the past, time actually replaced technology. There just wasn't any rush, since buildings were planned years ahead. A pretty common rule was 1 year of air seasoning for every inch of thickness, and honestly, it was often even longer for structural oak. This method, well, it allowed moisture to leave the wood slowly, which reduced internal stress. The result was lumber that stayed straight long after it was installed. If you're preparing wood for furniture or, say, long-term shelter today, it's best to measure time in seasons, not just weeks. Even 6 additional months can really make the difference between whether a joint holds or fails. So, why did rotation and restacking matter so much? Well, experienced woodwardens didn't just stack and forget. Lumber piles were restacked from time to time, flipping boards and changing their positions within the stack. This, you see, made sure that no piece dried faster or slower than the rest. In practice today, this might mean breaking down your stack every few months, especially in the first year. It is labor, but it replaces future repair. How old builders read wood instead of measuring it. Without moisture meters, seasoning was judged by sound, weight, and smell. A seasoned board rang sharper when struck, felt lighter in the hand, and lacked the sour scent of green wood. Cracks stabilized instead of spreading. This sensory awareness is still valid. Pick up your boards regularly, knock them together, learn how they change. These signals are more reliable than numbers alone. Why patience created stronger joinery. Wood that finishes drying after assembly will shrink and tear joints apart. Old joinery depended on fully seasoned wood so that movement happened before construction. Mortise and tenon joints cut into patient wood locked tighter over time instead of loosening. If you apply this today, it means refusing to build prematurely. Let the wood reach equilibrium with its environment before committing to final joints. How seasoning supported survival and resilience. In pre-industrial societies, poorly seasoned wood meant failure during storms, winters, and fires. Roofs sagged, doors jammed, wagons split. Seasoning was not craft romanticism, it was risk management. For modern survivalists and off-grid builders, slow seasoning reduces maintenance and replacement. A shelter built from patient wood asks less from you later. Why old lumber often outlasts modern timber. Much reclaimed wood today has already completed its seasoning journey. That is why it behaves so predictably. When you reuse old beams, you are inheriting decades of stability. The lesson is clear. Time is not wasted, it is invested. Seasoning lumber, the old way, demands restraint in a culture addicted to speed. But the reward is wood that works with you instead of against you. It stays straight, it holds fasteners, it respects joinery. Most importantly, it lasts. If this kind of knowledge matters to you, support its preservation. Subscribe to Relic Logic for more deep dives into the systems that built the world before shortcuts. Share this video with someone who still believes patience is a form of strength.